Every single New York Jet is officially in Florham Park for training camp, which kicks off tomorrow. Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson, who were recently locked up on new contracts, spoke to reporters today at the facility alongside Quinnen Williams. What were some key takeaways from what they told reporters? We'll talk about that and much more all coming up here on a Tuesday edition of NY Flight Jets Talk, joined by Justin Freed of the Jet Press, baby. Let's go.
Jets, Jets, let's go.
Jets wide receiver Wesley Walker. Wesley, how you doing today? ESPN writer Mr. Rich Cimini, Jets reporter for The Athletic, Mr. Zach Rosenblatt, Hall of Famer and Jets legend Mr. Marty Lyons.
Your host, Connor Law.
What is going on, everyone? Hello and welcome back here into another edition of NY Flight Jets Talk here on this beautiful Tuesday evening, July 22nd, 2025. Make sure you smash that like button and hit subscribe on your way into the building. Connor Long right here with you guys on NY Flight Jets Talk. For all your questions, comments, thoughts in the chat, you can call into the show with the pinned comment at the top of the chat. And don't forget about our membership raffle. Every $2 super chat or gifted membership gives you an opportunity to win a Lavernius Coles, Wayne Corbett, Santana Moss signed photo, a Don Maynard signed photo, an Altoon signed photo, a free item from our merch store, and a channel emoji alongside the grand prize, which is a signed Sauce Gardner photo that will come in a frame. Appreciate all your support as always. Every $2 super chat or gifted membership gives you an entry. Thank you so much. As always, appreciate you joining us right here on NY Flight Jets Talk. Now joining us right here on the show, the man, the myth, the legend, Justin Freed of the Jet Press, baby. You know him, Jet Press website, the Jet Press podcast. Justin, thank you so much for joining us right here on the show. We were chopping it up about the NBA before the show. Most importantly, we were chopping it up about the fact that football is here, baby. Let's go.
It's back, man. The Jets are back. We finally have actual stuff to talk about. We don't have to break down hypotheticals and whatever. We have actual training camp news. I'm very excited to talk some Jets.
Absolutely. And I think the first news of training camp was obviously hearing Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner speak to the media today, obviously re-upped with New York, each on 4-year deals last week. Let's hear what Garrett initially had to say on his deal and how he's going to help change the narrative in New York.
There was a point, Garrett, where I think you said last year wasn't necessarily the season you wanted. It's been a lot of losing. At times you seem emotionally down when we would talk to you after the season, even at points in the season. Was there ever a point where you allowed yourself to think maybe this day wasn't going to come? And then when it did, what was the relief?
No, man. I've always kept my faith in that this thing's going to turn around and that I'm going to be a big part of why it does. You know, there's times where you have some days where are harder than others, right? And I'm not superhuman. I've had days where I've been down and felt like things weren't going our way, my way maybe, but the next day I always kind of came back down to earth and coming to work here with these people. And like I said, people that believe in me, I don't take that lightly. People that want to work with me and are complimentary of not just what I do on the field, but the way I interact with them. That stuff, them taking notice, it takes time to rebuild stuff like that, and I built that here. And like I said, it just takes time to rebuild that stuff. It's something you never want to plot on wanting to do again, right? You always want to be where you're at. So, yeah, I'll say that.
Obviously, Justin, since Garrett Wilson's arrived in New York, not a whole lot of winning. 2 back-to-back 7-win campaigns, and obviously a brutal 5-win season this past year. But Garrett Wilson is a core piece, a foundational piece that I think if you want to ultimately win down the road, he's a guy you have to lock up, and I think it sends the right message, making a guy like Garrett Wilson excited to report to training camp today, knowing that he's on a new deal.
Yeah, it definitely does. And it's easy to forget now, but if you go back a few months ago, 6-7 months ago, there was genuine fear that Garrett Wilson might have played his last game with the Jets. Like there was a lot of talk about him potentially requesting a trade. And, there was, I got something going on in the background. Okay. I don't know if you heard that. My bad. There was genuine talk. I don't know how that was open a different tab. There was genuine concern that he had played his last game with the Jets. And it's a credit to the new regime, Darren Muji coming in. It's a credit to Aaron Glenn coming in that they were not only able to smooth out that situation and get Garrett Wilson back on the same page with this regime, but they got him extended. They didn't even wait until next offseason. They got it done this summer. So if you were talking about this new regime and everything that they've done this offseason to kind of restore normalcy, I guess you could put it, to this organization, I think that starts and almost ends with salvaging that Garrett Wilson relationship and getting a guy to stay in Florham Park who is everything the Jets should want in not only all-world talent off the field. He is one of only, I think, five NFL wide receivers in history, I believe, to have 80 plus catches and over 1,000 receiving yards in each of his first 3 seasons. And he's done that catching passes from 8 different quarterbacks, including guys like Trevor Siemian, Tim Boyle, Chris Streveler, not even mentioning the guy who threw him passes for most of that time, and Zach Wilson, who's also not very good. He's been everything you want on the field. He's done everything right off the field. He said everything right off the field. I'm very happy this guy's a Jet, not only for the next few years, but for 6 years. He's under team control through 2030. Shout out to the Jets for getting that done.
Definitely, and I think this sends the right message, like I said, throughout the organization. Also, he's a foundational piece that it's going to be crucial to have in the building when you ultimately are able to establish a core that is ready to contend and hopefully go on a Super Bowl run. Moving over to the cornerback position, Sauce Gardner, also locked up by Gang Green, 4-year, $120 million contract. Highest AAV among any cornerback in the NFL, just ahead of Derek Stingley of the Houston Texans. Sauce Gardner, though, still coming off a down year for his standards, despite being measured as a top 10 cornerback in most categories. What are his expectations for the 2025 season? Let's take a look.
Just talk about they have expectations, but what are your expectations just for this season and beyond?
I want to be the best. Like, that's not just this season, but that's like in general, like my legacy that I want to leave. I want to win games, and I think we have the players, the coaches, and everything that it takes to win games and to win a lot of games. So, I'm just looking forward to that. That's my main thing. I know my individual accolades, those are going to come with us winning games, so because I know like our coaches are putting us in position and they're going to put me in position to make plays. So individually, like that's not something that I'm worried about. I just know us winning games. Everything else is going to come.
There's Sauce Gardner there talking about what his personal expectations are for this season and how that could translate to, actually winning on the field for the first time truly in his career. Justin, how do you expect Sauce Gardner to perform this season? Obviously, you have a new head coach in Aaron Glenn, a defensive-minded head coach at that, and a new defensive coordinator in Steve Wilkes, a new secondary coach, a whole new coaching staff for Sauce Gardner. How do you expect him to perform in 2025?
I mean, it's a perfect situation for a bounce back. And it's funny that we're even saying bounce back, considering that last year he still allowed the fewest catches among any qualified corner in the NFL. I know I've said that stat a lot, but it really just goes to show how high the expectations are and how high that bar has been set for Sauce Gardner. But yeah, I would expect nothing less from him in 2025. I would expect him to be a borderline All-Pro again. I mean, he was first-team All-Pro his first 2 years. There's only 2 defensive players since the NFL merger who have ever been first-team All-Pro in consecutive years to start their career. That's Lawrence Taylor, Micah Parsons, and then the third is Sauce Gardner. So I would expect him to return to that level of dominance. He's in a situation where he's being coached by a ton of former NFL defensive backs. Of course, Aaron Glenn, Steve Wilkes. They got Dre Bly in that room. Chris Harris, the DB's coach. There's a lot of names there that can help get the best out of Sauce Gardner. And you almost got to give him and a lot of players in that team last year a Jets tax, if you will, considering that almost every player in the entire roster regressed. I know we like to talk about Sauce because he's the big name, but you look up and down that roster, there were very few players who genuinely had the best year of their careers outside of guys like Will McDonald or, John Simpson. There were very, very few. A lot more players regressed. So I would hope in a better situation, a more, the vibes are just better in Florham Park. I'd hope he would have a better season. I also think he might get picked on a little bit less considering the Jets went out and signed Brandon Stevens, who we've talked about him in the past. Not as high on that signing. I would not be shocked if Stevens, who has been picked on by opposing quarterbacks each, over the last 2 years, wouldn't be shocked if they continue to do that this year, which might mean Sauce just gets targeted less. But yeah, I expect great things from Sauce Gardner in 2025, which I don't think anyone should be surprised by that.
Definitely. I mean, this is a guy you look at up and down. He's still a 2-time first-team All-Pro. He's the first cornerback in NFL history to accomplish that feat. You also mentioned, obviously, Leonard Taylor III, Micah Parsons, 2 incredible names. He joins there on that list as guys who have accomplished that throughout the first 3 years of their career. Justin obviously practices kickoff tomorrow. Not open to the public, but media will be there. I will be there myself, so certainly looking forward to that. Who would you tab as the player under the most pressure for Gang Green entering training camp?
Ooh, under the most pressure. I mean, going into training camp, it's a different story than like the season. For the season, I'd be like maybe a Brees Hall.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure how much of that is going to be him to prove in training camp. I mean, really, I'm looking at the wide receiver room as the first thing that comes to mind because I think that's the position group that has the most spots up for grabs. Really, you have one solidified player in that entire room, and it's Garrett Wilson. Everyone outside of that is fighting for a spot. I'll put the onus here on my Malachi Corley. That's where my attention will go to. He missed a lot of the spring, pretty much all of it. He missed all of minicamp with an undisclosed injury. By all accounts, he should be healthy. He was not placed on any injury list to start training camp. He is somebody who has a fresh slate with a new coaching staff to prove to this staff that he deserves not only a spot on the roster, because that's not guaranteed, but carve out an actual role in one of the thinner wide receiver rooms in the entire NFL. The opportunities will be there for him. I mean, his competition right now is Xavier Gibson, who's little more than a special teams guy, and he's not even a particularly great special teams guy. Tyler Johnson, who I like, but he's bounced around the NFL. Vets like Alan Lazard, like Josh Reynolds, and then a fourth-round rookie in Arian Smith, who I think is going to be a bit more of a developmental project. So I think Malachi Corley has every opportunity to prove that he deserves a role in this football team. I'm not saying he's going to be able to do that, but I think as far as guys under the most pressure, he is a former third-round pick who, I mean, he was the top pick in the third round. He might as well have been a second-round pick. The previous regime, despite kind of bailing on him quickly, put a lot of stock into him when they made that pick. I think he's under a lot of pressure to prove that not only he deserves a spot on this roster, but deserves a spot in the NFL. Because if he gets cut by the Jets this summer, I'm not sure what the rest of his NFL career, if there even is one, looks like. So I think he's facing a lot of pressure in training camp.
Absolutely. You mentioned Tyler Johnson there, though. That's an intriguing name I want to get into, and kind of an under-the-radar guy, in my opinion, who not a lot of Jet fans have spoken about since the team did add him earlier this offseason. Justin, what role do you project Johnson playing on this year's team?
I think right now he's probably wide receiver 4. That's what makes sense to me. Josh Reynolds and Alan Lazard are competing for that wide receiver 2 job. I imagine, Reynolds right now, he seems like the early front runner. Lazard is still in the mix. I'm assuming Lazard doesn't get traded. I still think it's a possibility that Pittsburgh comes calling, maybe, the DK Metcalf or whoever. So they have some sort of injury to that wide receiver room. And now they need a guy. Who does Aaron Rodgers want to call Alan Lazard? I think it's totally still possible, but assuming they're both on the team, those are probably your wide receiver 2, your wide receiver 3. But I think Tyler Johnson is the most proven, quote unquote, wide receiver in that room outside of those guys. He's actually been someone who has made the most of his opportunities. Even in his career, he's only had 19 contested catch opportunities. He's caught 13 of those. Yeah, he is somebody who has maximized his reps, and he had a decent year with the Rams last season, and I believe he's spoken on record how, I believe it was week 1 that they played the Lions last year, and he went for almost 80 yards, and that was part of the reason he's spoken about that, why Aaron Glenn came calling this offseason and was like, hey, we got to get this guy in the building. So I think he's someone who can absolutely carve out a role in this offense. They're going to mix up a lot of guys in that wide receiver room. They just have a lot of names there right now. I wouldn't be surprised if he breaks out at some point during the year. Probably going to start the year as wide receiver 4, but if you're telling me he finishes as wide receiver 2 by the end of the year, I would not be shocked, mostly because his competition is Josh Reynolds and Alan Lazard, and that's not exactly threatening competition.
I put him as my sleeper, Justin, or in the wide receiver 2 duties. I do think he's the wide receiver 3 from a target share standpoint. This season, the depth chart could show what it wants. I think target share is the most important metric when it comes to, measuring a receiver's efficiency or role overall on a team. Tyler Johnson's been very efficient in multiple facets. Hasn't had many drops, pretty much in every contested catch opportunity, and is a yak machine. He ranked 5th in the league in yak over expected last season, and the wide receivers ahead of him included, names like Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase. So the article that I wrote about Johnson probably about 2 or 3 months ago at this point, I stated I think this is a perfect opportunity for him because I think the Jets are a perfect team to give him an opportunity to take all of those skills and maximize it in a fair enough role where he can, truly establish himself as a reliable pass catcher, because he has the tools to be a very solid, a very consistent NFL wide receiver. I just don't think he's gotten a fair opportunity to piece all of that together. So Tyler Johnson, certainly an interesting name to watch here in training camp for the Jets, see how he's able to carve out a role in this offense. Justin, obviously positional battles are super important in training camp. That's what a lot of people are focusing on. We all know wide receiver 2. We all know defensive tackle 2 alongside Quentin Williams. Those are the top priorities. Are there any under the radar positions you think there could be a battle that you wanna point out here?
Yeah, I would definitely. I'll do one on either side of the ball. First, offense. I'm really interested to see how the running back room shakes out because there was a lot of talk going back even before the draft. Obviously there was the talk about a potentially Breece Hall trade, but part of that was sparked because of comments that Aaron Glenn had made where it was kind of hinting at more of a committee approach. I'm interested to see how the Jets divvy up those reps in training camp and going into the preseason. I assume Breece Hall is going to be the guy, but I think there's a world where Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis eat into his snaps this year. And I think we're going to see a little bit of that, maybe a bit of a precursor to what the regular season will look like in that regard in the preseason and in training camp. And also, specifically between Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis, because I think a lot of people are assuming Allen is running back too in that room where I don't think that's necessarily the case. I would not be surprised at all if Isaiah Davis, who I think was more efficient on a per touch basis, they had weird rookie seasons because Braylon Allen had a good start to his rookie year, had a couple of good games to start and did basically nothing for the rest of the year. Whereas Isaiah Davis was basically a special teamer to begin the year. And then by the end of the year, he was actually getting some carries. And I thought he produced all right in limited opportunities. So I wouldn't be shocked if Isaiah Davis emerges there over Braylon Allen. And on defense, you mentioned defensive tackle. I think those depth defensive end spots are also really interesting to look at because we mentioned this briefly before we started recording. That defensive line room right now, you have three guys there where Quentin Williams, all-world talent, amazing player. Will McDonald coming off that breakout 10.5 sack season. You'd like to see him be a better run defender and hopefully that extra weight that will help in that regard. You got Jermaine Johnson, who's working his way back from the Achilles injury, but if he's anything like pre-Achilles tear Jermaine Johnson, he's a very good football player. The rest of that defensive end room, or the rest of that defensive line, there's not much. It is a bunch of guys, right? You have fifth-round rookie Tyler Barron competing for snaps. You have Michael Clemens, who is still penciled in, I would say, as the top backup defensive end, even though he is not a very good player. He's coming off a poor season.
By the way, we had a caller yesterday on the show, Indy Jets, who made a case that he thinks Michael Clemens is going to have 8 sacks this season, 8+ sacks.
Wow. That's a bold claim. I would love to see that. I would love to see it happen. I will say that. I think it would take an extreme set of circumstances for that to happen. Maybe he gets 8 pressures and they all just become sacks. I don't know.
Or he's in the backfield 16 times and he happens to tap the quarterback.
Yeah.
Need to get home for 8
or he gets like pancaked or whatever, and Will McDonald flushes the quarterback up the pocket and he
falls into the quarterback.
Right, trips over Michael Clemens, something like that. I would love to see it, but he's penciled in as your top backup defensive end. You have Rashad Weaver, who was a free agent flyer who, based on reports, had a good spring, but take those with a grain of salt.
Which does not matter.
It really doesn't mean anything, especially for trench play. It means virtually nothing. But he hasn't had a sack since 2021. But at one point, 3 or 4 years ago, he was a quality rotational outside linebacker / edge rusher. Like maybe there's something there. And then guys like Braden McGregor, Eric Watts, they're also there in the mix. Like there's just a lot of dudes in that defensive end room. I would love to see one of them emerge and do something. Obviously, we've been tricked in the past. Last year, we talked about how much depth this defensive end room had. I mean, Tack McKinley was killing it in the summer. Braden McGregor had an awesome summer.
One of my Instagram followers, by the way, there.
There you go. Shout out Tack McKinley.
Oh, yeah.
What did they do in the regular season? Nothing. Literally nothing. So I would just like to see one of those guys emerge, preferably Tyler Barron. I think that's somebody, I don't even know if he has like a super high ceiling, but when you're looking at just who's in that room, I think he could be a quality NFL player. I don't know if he's ever going to be that guy.
That was my favorite draft pick, by the way.
Oh, okay. You're big on Barron. Okay. I would love to see it. I would absolutely. I'm just writing an article on this too. This is going to come out in the next day or two. With Jermaine Johnson landing on PUP, there's going to be an opportunity for increased reps for guys like Barron, for guys like Braden McGregor or Rashad Weaver, or whoever. That's an increased opportunity that they might not have had otherwise. So I'm happy there's at least a silver lining to Jermaine Johnson missing, the start of camp. He should be ready for week 1. That's the expectation. But I do think those extra reps will be meaningful. And I'd like to see one of those guys emerge, and make the most of the opportunity.
Yeah, I really like Barron. And the reason I've spoke about this and I've written about it a ton for JetX is the Jets really don't have a guy, even if Jermaine Johnson's fully healthy, they don't have a guy who gives you a ton of pass rush upside with athleticism and is also a reliable run stuffer off the edge. Tyler Barron did both of those things at Miami. And that's the reason I make a case, Justin. Zadarius Smith, he's on the open market. played in Aaron Glenn's scheme. I don't care that he's on the back nine of his career. This guy had a double-digit sack season last year, excuse me. He's had a double-digit sack season for multiple years consecutively now throughout his career. Give him an opportunity. Take a flyer on him. See what he can do. Bring him in, especially with, obviously Jermaine Johnson opening the year on the PUP list, the physically unable to perform list.
Mm-hmm.
And, I expect Jermaine Johnson. I don't think the season is going to play out like this, so don't misquote me here like a lot of people do from time to time. I think it's kind of going to be a Mike Williams ease into the season. I know that might not be what fans want to hear, but Mike Williams obviously in a similar situation coming off an ACL tear at this point last year. He opened training camp on the PUP list, and then he slowly kind of worked his way back in. He wasn't able to carve out a role in the offense. I think things will be different for Jermaine Johnson on the defensive side of things, but I don't expect Jermaine Johnson to be playing 95% of the defensive snaps come week 1 at home against Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I know he wants to be out there, and if it was up to him, he'd be playing 100% of defensive snaps week 1, but I do think they're going to ease him back into the play. And it's also it's tough, man. And Achilles injury is really tough for edge rushers. We've seen, Jets fans have seen this. Remember the Carl Lawson? Carl Lawson was absolutely dominating his first training camp with the Jets. So, dominating training camp, whatever. I thought he was going to have an amazing year. I love that signing when they made that move, and I thought he was a fantastic edge rusher. He tore his Achilles, was never the same player. I don't want that, and I don't think that will be the case with Jermaine Johnson, but you never know. And it's very tough, especially that first year back from an Achilles tear. Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed if they went out and signed a Za'Darius Smith. I'm not sure how much they're in the market for bigger name veterans, but he's someone who has experience with this coaching staff. He makes sense. Another guy I've talked about who does make sense as well, also has similar connections, DeMarcus Walker. I'm surprised he's still a free agent. Former second-round pick of the Broncos. He was in Denver, drafted by Denver when Darren Muji was with the Broncos. So he spent a few years with the Broncos, never really broke out as anything more than a rotational piece, bounced around a bit. He spent the last 2 years in Chicago where he crossed paths with Eric Washington, who is now the Jets defensive line coach. So there's really two connections there. You have the D-line coach, Eric Washington. You have Darren Muji, who was in Denver when DeMarcus Walker was drafted. Quality player, 39 pressures last year, 47 pressures the year before. He started all 17 games for the Bears last season. Now, the Bears had a bad defensive line, and this would make it the second veteran defensive lineman that the Jets have signed from that Bears unit. They signed Byron Cowart, who was a rotational tackle for that.
Special teamer.
Yeah, rotational D tackle, special team or whatever for that Bears defensive line. I think Walker's a quality NFL player. He's 30 to 31, I think, in September, I believe. So, it's very much similar to Za'Darius Smith, would kind of go against the grain for how they've approached this offseason. They only have four players in the entire 90-man roster.
And by the way, honestly, F that. If you're a good football player and you could help this team win games and contribute, I don't care how old you are. Yes, if this team's contending for a Super Bowl 5 years from now, yes, Za'Darius Smith may not be here. Right. However, he's going to help you win games now, and he's going to provide a depth piece. You still need to try to win games. Sorry for cutting.
And I understand it. No, and I understand in the wide receiver room why you might not want to do that as much, because you have two vets there in Reynolds and Lazard, and you don't want to take away snaps from Arian Smith or Malachi Corral, if he even makes the team, or Tyler Johnson, whoever. Right? With that D end room, man, DeMarcus Walker is just a better Michael Clemens. I don't see why Walker can't come in and do exactly what Clemens is doing. Walker, by the way, 6'4", 280. So he's big. He's got size. He can defend the run enough. He's had a problem with missed tackles the last couple of years, but he can hold up in run defense kind of the same way that they use Clemens as somewhat of a tweener. And they've really made him more of just a true end at this stage, but he was a tweener more early in his career. I don't see why Walker can't come in and do the job of Michael Clemens. You could just get rid of Michael Clemens at that point and let the younger guys, the Tyler Barons, the Eric Watts, the Braden McGregors, whoever, right? They can compete for the other spots. I don't think there'd be any harm. So I wouldn't be surprised or upset if they made a move like that.
Absolutely. So I think that's certainly going to be interesting to look out for, guys. Again, here, get all your questions, comments, thoughts in the chat. We're going to get to those shortly along into the show with the pinned comment at the top of the chat. I want to get your thoughts on two guys who came in a league with high expectations. Both hail from the Washington organization, the Washington Commanders organization. Phidarian Mathis, Jamin Davis. Jamin Davis, first-round pick. Phidarian Mathis, very, very high second-round pick. These are guys that not a lot of people are talking about, Justin. Can you see them making the 53-man roster any way, shape, or form?
Yeah, just mostly because there's not a lot of competition at those positions. Again, we just talked about D tackle, how it's again, they just got a bunch of dudes in there. They have Byron Cowart. They got Derek Nottie. They signed Jay Tufele as well. You have Fedarian Mathis, who, flamed out in Washington. He had some injuries there as well that contributed to that. But even when he played, he was not particularly good. He was a former top recruit at Alabama, though. So there's a pedigree there. I could see him pushing for a roster spot again if he does anything of all. This summer. I mean, Leonard Taylor's in there too. It's a crowded room, but it's crowded in the sense that they just have a lot of bodies. Like they have a couple of UDFAs in there, Fatorma Mulba. They got
oh my God
from Clemson. I'm just listing names now.
I like Peyton Page, by the way.
Yeah, Peyton Page is fine.
Yeah.
Look, you can't go wrong with a Clemson D lineman. There's been a lot of great Clemson D linemen in the NFL. So yeah, I mean, like it's possible that Mathis can carve out a role. I think Davis has probably got a clearer path to playing time because, I mean, I have no idea who their third linebacker is right now.
I think it has to be Maui Goa.
Maybe. I really, I mean, Maui Goa, obviously, like, they just drafted him in the 5th round. I think he's really probably more of a Mike. I guess he could play that Sam role too, which is where they'd want him. But, the Jets have a great linebacker duo in Jamie Sherwood and Quincy Williams. Nothing has come of that Quincy Williams situation. He's just going to looks like it looks like he's just going to play out his contract and be extremely underpaid. So I guess, shout out to him.
I don't want to be the one to pay him. Like I don't want to give him.
Yeah, they're probably not going to.
Yeah, Quincy is. I've had great interactions with Quincy. We've interacted on social media. I've met him in games. Probably my favorite Jet. If I did have to pick, my answer changes every time. Probably my favorite Jet. I don't think the Jets should be the team to pay him. Like nothing ever good comes out of paying a linebacker whose speed is starting to decrease and is starting to approach 30 years old. Nothing good typically comes out of handing that guy a very, very high AV. I would hold off on Quincy for now. I don't want to be the team that overpays for him. And what you mentioned about the linebackers there, that's really interesting because Maui Go is a very vocal leader. He reminds me more of a Sherwood. He doesn't have the talent as Sherwood, but he's kind of, the vocal leader that, the captain of the defense, kind of like we saw CJ Mosley do. And now, obviously, Jamie and Sherwood's inheriting that role. They could carry only 3 linebackers. I think they do carry 4, though. I think the 4th spot goes to Marcelino McCrary-Ball. I think how efficient he was on special teams and what he showed hustle-wise, I think he deserves to earn a spot on the roster this year. So I look at Marcelino McCrary-Ball, but there are still so many questions about even the back end of this defense too. Who's the starting strong safety? It could be Malachi Moore, but Malachi Moore I think is more of a fringe guy when it comes to that, who's in between free safety and strong safety. Like he's not a Jamal Adams rover type player where you just play him down low and he's going to get you 7-8 sacks. By the way, Jamal Adams, the newest member of the Las Vegas Raiders, say goodbye to that potential reunion in New York. But I mean, there are still so many questions on this defense. I'll pose that question to you, Justin. You think Malachi Moore's the starting strong safety on this team?
I don't think he will be to start week 1. I think he'll be in the mix. I think, honestly, you mentioned carrying 3 linebackers. I think they probably carry like 5, honestly, but I think they only carry 3 safeties. Depending on how you classify Isaiah Oliver. I think Isaiah Oliver will be that default 4th safety, but I really think the only 3 like true safeties on the roster are going to be Andre Cisco, Tony Adams, and Malachi Moore. I like Malachi Moore a lot. I think he is somebody who can immediately step in and be a contributor. I think they will play 3 safety looks on this defense. I would not be shocked if, look, there was the comparisons to Brian Branch. They both played at Alabama. They both played some hybrid role at Alabama. And I believe Glenn even spoke to Brian Branch, who he coached in Detroit, about the Malachi Moore pick before it was made or after it was made. He talked to him about it. So that comparison can be made. I don't think Malachi Moore is going to be Brian Branch, but I think he's a pretty NFL ready player who, I like Tony Adams. I think Tony Adams is a successful development story from an undrafted player. He's a replacement level starter. I think he's a starting caliber safety, a below average one. I think he's a replacement level player. Would not be shocked if Malachi Moore eats into his snaps by the midway point of the year. I do think that Adams will probably be the week 1 starter alongside Cisco, though.
Adams. Okay. I'm a big Tony Adams fan too. It's super funny because do you know who Dylan Terraman is of Jet Nation?
Yes.
He was on another Jet podcast and they were talking about I was in the chat. I was listening, I was getting some work done and they were talking about crazy jerseys and Dylan was like, who's coming on the show this Friday? By the way, he was like, yeah, I know people have Tony Adams jerseys. So I'm like,
well, I see a lot of people just turn their Jamal Adams jerseys into Tony. I've seen that because he was 33, Tony Adams was 22. I've seen people turn their Jamal Adams jerseys into Tony Adams jerseys.
That's intriguing. I
Yeah.
actually bought a real Tony Adams jersey. So
Yeah, to like recycle it kind of and still got, because I did have a Jamal Adams jersey. That is the last fun fact. That is the last prominent athlete that I've had a jersey.
that's my
for.
screensaver. Me with my grandpa in a Jamal Adams
boy,
shirt.
I'm sorry to hear that. I'm sorry to hear that. But since that happened, I'm like, well, now I can no longer get like high profile athlete jerseys. So I just stick to the. I got a Will Parks jersey. I got a
Philly Will, baby.
Philly Will, man. I got a Jeremy Rucker jersey. I had to because, the Long Island connection. I'm going to get an Ariel Hukporty Knicks jersey because, look, man, I love.
Will he play one game this season?
Maybe. Hey, Tibbs is gone. He might play a little more now. I love me some Jalen Brunson, but I can't do it. I can't jinx him like that. I can't curse him.
Yeah, the jersey curses are tough.
It's real.
There's no one like intriguing I want to add. Like, I'm not gonna get a Fields jersey. I love Fields, by the way. Like, I think Fields could be a top 15 quarterback in this league. I'm not gonna buy a Justin Fields jersey. Like, I kind of like sticking to the under the radar guys somewhat. I have a Tippmann jersey, which is nice. He's not
nice.
the
If
most.
I was to get another one, the other one, because I put a poll literally last summer or 2 summers ago, whatever, and I was like, which Jets jersey should I get? And I remember one of the other ones on there was Jarek Bernard Converse, just because of how long his name is. And I think it'd be really funny. Look, you're getting the best.
He was on Will Parkinson the other day. So
was he really? Hey, fun fact, I interviewed Jarek Bernard Converse.
Pre-draft.
Yes, there you go. About a week before he was drafted by the Jets, and then he got drafted. I was like, I messaged him like, this is awesome. You got drafted by the Jets. Really good dude. But I hope I don't know if he's making the team, but I hope he does. But I think that'd be funny. Best bang for your buck. You get the most letters, or like get like Xavier Newman, but Xavier Newman Johnson, which is like his full name. Do that. I don't know. Something like that.
Or a Felipe Franks jersey. And
Marcelino McCrary Ball. That's another one. Just get the most letters.
McCrary Ball. What an interesting name. And obviously, you hope this team brings in notable players and they perform and they outperform expectations for the first time, and you can ultimately land their jerseys. That's the hope for this Jets team. Appreciate tuning in. Smash the like button, hit subscribe. Justin and Connor right here with you guys on the show. Justin, thank you so much for spending some time with us right here on the show. You got any final thoughts here before we do wrap things up?
I'm just happy that football's back, dude. It's been a rough few months of just covering. We were talking about this right before we started recording, but like normally this Jets team, they will give you stuff to talk about even in the quietest parts of the offseason. I mean, last year was a chaotic mess with the Hassan Reddick holdout, the Aaron Rodgers skipping minicamp. Like normally there is stuff to talk about. There has been nothing. There is no distractions. There is no drama. And I say that as a content creator, I say that as a bad thing. But as a fan of this team, I say that as a great thing. And I'm very happy with the direction the organization has gone in. I don't think they're going to win a ton of football games this year, but I certainly think I'm going to have fun watching this team. And I think
prediction?
I will say, so my take has been, I think the floor for this team is a lot higher than people realize, just because as long as
5 wins is the floor.
I think I've been saying 6. I think 6 or 7 games. Well, as a 5 is maybe a floor. I think they win 6 or 7 games just because, like, and I think it was Nani.
8-9, baby.
8-9 would be great. I think it was Nani that pointed this out. Like, if you have a top 10 offense team in the NFL, there is just a baseline level of competency that you are generally going to be as a football team. It is very rare to see a team that has a top 10 offensive line be outright bad. So I think if this offensive line is what we think it is, if Armand Membu comes in and he plays well and the rest of the guys stay healthy, the Jets should win 6-7 games, I think, as a baseline this year. As long as Justin Fields is not the worst quarterback in the NFL, which my expectations aren't super high, they're higher than the worst quarterback in the NFL. So, I'm just happy Jets football's back, and I'm happy that we have a pretty much distraction-free. We had a distraction-free spring and a distraction-free summer to this point. Happy about that.
Absolutely. We'll be back doing daily content now here on the show, officially after a 2-week hiatus during the dead period. Tomorrow, I'll be at training camp. Follow me on Twitter, live updates, and obviously a breakdown of practice and everything in between coming later. Tomorrow evening should be around 8 p.m. EST, where we do go live. So stay tuned for that. Appreciate you all. Smash the like button. Hit subscribe. Follow Justin. Read his work, jetpress.com. Follow him at Justin T. Freed on Twitter. Does great work. So, Justin, appreciate you spending some time. Everyone, thank you guys for watching this edition of NY Flight Jets Talk. He's Justin Freed. I'm your host, Connor Long, signing off right here on this Tuesday evening. Training camp kicks off tomorrow, and let's go Jets, baby. Peace out.